back here with yet another episode of EdCast with no other than Paul Ainsworth. He's the Education Director of Infinity Academies Trust, takes care of 5 primary schools under it, all about heart. He has amazing blogs to write about. People, of course, talk about those. And one of the most important books that he's written is on No Silver Bullets approach, which actually led us to be introduced to him. So, hi Paul, how are you today?
I'm doing great, and thanks very much for wanting to talk to me this afternoon.
You're welcome. I guess we're honoured to be sitting here and be talking to you. So, yes, Iris?
Sure. So Paul, let's just quickly dive into it. So we want to hear more about your journey, you know, your sort of starting from your start of your career all the way to now with your having a senior position in the Academy Trust. So if you can talk about it from the start all the way.
Of course. So I started off as a maths teacher in a small Lincolnshire secondary school over towards Spalding, a little town called Holbeach, kind of quite a deprived town and kind of quite low aspirations at that point. And over the next 15 years I worked through a number of positions, so maths teacher up to being assistant head and then deputy head and then became head of the secondary school. And I did that until 2015, and then in 2015 I joined one of the large multi-academy trusts that's based in the East Midlands, and I think that was when my career really changed. Up to that point, been a very standard leadership career, but then I had the opportunity to work for one of the big multi-academy trusts, which was really exciting, and learned lots of things and met some fantastic people during my time, and began to work in primary schools at that stage. So with the large multi-academy trust, I was responsible for the primary schools and secondary schools, and also doing a lot of leadership development, so running courses for future system leaders, new head teachers, aspirant head teachers. It was a kind of really exciting time. Lots of sponsored academies and kind of real improvement across the primary schools. The primary schools that multi-academy trust really developed over those 3.5 years. And then I moved through 2 other multi-academy trusts, 2 Catholic multi-academy trusts, one in Lincolnshire and one in West Yorkshire, and now I find myself working for Infinity Academies Trust, which is a multi-academy trust of currently 10 primary schools. All in Lincolnshire. We've got a mixture of church schools and community schools, and I'm one of the education directors, and it's a really exciting place to work. And this afternoon we're starting Little Gonnerby Primary Academy, which is in Grantham, and one of our newest schools within the trust.
So just a question, so I think when you were at the assistant head, when was that? What year was that in?
That was 2002.
Right.
That's when I first joined the senior leadership team. I've been head of maths for a year and a term, and a really fantastic principal at that secondary school gave me the opportunity to join the senior leadership team. So I was quite young at that stage, and worked with some really experienced colleagues. It was a fantastic learning opportunity for me.
So just in the leadership roles, you've got 20 years of experience under you, right? And that's huge, especially in this ever-changing environment in the academy where academization is like on the rise. You know, most things in the curriculum, the DFE starting to sort of use things. And so I think from that up to now, just being a leader for 20 years, there's a lot that you've learned, and the upcoming people can, you know, take lessons from really the upcoming leaders. And I think you've talked about it in your book as well. No schools. I think as well, I'll let you. So if you can sort of talk more about that and how you've captured how the wider public, you know, can get to hear about the lessons or read about the lessons that you've learned.
And yes, of course, you know. And before I was talking about the No Silver Bullets approach, I would actually like you to shed some light on why you do what you do. You spent 20 years in education, and a lot of it is primary. You've done a lot of leadership endeavors, I would say, and you know there has to be something behind it. Otherwise, why would somebody want to be at one place for 20 years? So, what is that passion, or what is that drive? And then probably then we can move on to the No Silver Bullets approach and why you wrote that book. So, of course, you know, starting with, what was it?
So I suppose my drive to originally become a leader was that I knew that if I was teaching in a classroom, I had influence over 30 children in front of me. And then, if I became the head of a subject, I had influence over 5 or 6 other classroom teachers and had influence over all the pupils who were taught my subject. And then when I became a senior leader, I wanted to have that influence for a wider group of people that kind of spread down, and even more so in multi-academy trusts. So I'm blessed now that I get to work with a range of head teachers and kind of help support them. And the kind of the why do I do what I do? I'm really passionate about schools that have had difficult times, that the children in those schools get the best chance. So in the county that I work, there's been a range of schools that have struggled for many years, and that's the school that those children go to. They don't have a massive choice in a rural environment. You go to your nearest school. So I really believe that children only get one chance, and what we've got to do is create a range of schools that really provide for those children. So I'm really passionate about working in areas of disadvantage and transforming schools. And there's no better moment for a system leader, and this happened very recently, where you support a school over 3 or 4 years. And it was maybe a low Ofsted grading to start off with, and then you're there for that 2-day inspection. You're there to get that validation that the school's improved and the community can be proud of its school. So that final feedback in an Ofsted, I know Ofsted is a really difficult topic at the moment for a whole range of reasons, but to get that validation from an external body that a school that has maybe been good once in 20 years is now a good school, I think that is just an incredible motivation.
And that's wonderful, that fulfillment is, of course, it takes us over the moon always. When you see lives being changed, which actually happens eventually, because that's the first phase. And forgive me, for asking this, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but, and honestly, but what's the story? I mean, does it come from, were you the eldest child, you always wanted to help? Was it, because you'd seen a lot of people being deprived when you were growing up, or it just came because you became a teacher?
I think that kind of motivation changed in the middle of my career. I came from, I went to a village school and a secondary school that wasn't a fantastic secondary school. Not many children did A-levels and not many children went to university. But it was fine. It was okay. It was a 1980s school. And for those of us who remember the 1980s, it wasn't the most positive time maybe. And in my early part of my teaching career, I worked in quite comfortable schools, and that was the type of, and I was really just committed into providing high quality schools. But when I joined the large multi-academy trust in 2015 and worked in some really deprived communities, and I worked with schools that had been broken for generations, that had never ever been good, and in some of the more deprived parts of the country, and I just genuinely believe that every child deserves a good school. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, and what we have to do in education is provide the very best schools for those children. So yeah, when I kind of I can think of working a fantastic school in Grimsby called Academies Primary Academy, in one of the poorer parts of Grimsby on that kind of east coast, and seeing that school transformed over 3 or 4 years was just absolutely amazing. And similarly, working with St Nicholas and Primary Academy in Boston for Infinity, seeing how that school has been transformed by an amazing head teacher and her senior leadership team is just fantastic to see.
Beautiful. So probably, is that something that led you to eventually go towards the no silver bullets approach? And I would really want you to explain what the approach is, how you would help, applying this to your schools, and maybe that can help other teachers as well.
So I think over time in education we've often looked for magic solutions, and certainly I was guilty of this when I was a secondary school head. If you're looking for a magic idea, you bring this idea in and it's going to transform your school. And that's really hard for staff, because things are changing too much and big things are coming in and things are being replaced, and I think that's really hard for teaching colleagues and really stressful. I did a lot of reading, and I was really taken with books by people like Malcolm Gladwell, Matthew Syed, reading about Sir Clive Woodward and his rugby coaching career, David Brailsford with cycling and how British cycling was transformed. And they talk about the aggregation of marginal gains. They talk about small changes making massive difference. And that is the root of a kind of no silver bullets approach. So it's kind of saying, there aren't magic answers. You don't buy a box, bring it into a school, and it transforms your school. Yes, you need tools. You need, well-honed curriculums or well-honed behavioural management techniques and all those kind of things. But what you do is you work on those things day in, day out, and that's why the book's called No Silver Bullets, Day in, Day Out School Improvement, because there are no magic answers. But actually, what we know, what makes a difference in schools is high quality staff trying every day, trying to make their classroom, their department, their subject area, their school 1% better. And if we do that, if we kind of make that tiny change day in, day out, that's what makes the difference. So that's what I'm kind of saying in kind of No Silver Bullets. I'm saying, don't look for the big magic answers. They're not there. In any school, there is lots of good in it, and what you've got to do is try and find that good and just keep making it a little bit better. So in the book, there's 105 little ideas. Little tweaks that you might read and think, oh, I can do that, I can work on that. And actually, don't try and do 105 of them, that's impossible. Just look for it, try to improve pupil behaviour, try to make pupil behaviour a little bit better. There's kind of 30 little ideas that you could try some of those things or and will add to what you're already doing, that kind of fine-tuning, that honing of ideas. So that's the idea of the book. And I wrote the book because one of my head teachers jokingly said when I left, Paul, every time you come you give me new ideas. Where are the new ideas going to come from when you leave? Can you write them down in a book?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was the kind of idea. And also the idea, I don't know if you've read the book like Legacy, which is about the All Black New Zealand rugby team, and the idea is write your playbook, write down your suggestions of how you think you do wrong. So, it makes it really easy for people to find out about me, or if they wanted to interview me, or those kind of things, because actually what I believe makes a difference in school is in that book, and if people don't like it, then they probably won't like me as a legalist. Just lots of little things about making a difference.
Okay, so why are we talking about this? So this means smaller improvements every day? So I believe it says 1% change every day leads to 39% change in a month, improvement in a month. This is one theory that a lot of people follow. This also means celebrating small successes and not just looking at the peak of the mountain, am I correct?
Oh, definitely. And I think it's hard work being a teacher, it's hard work, striving for improvement. So I think that's when it's really important for head teachers and their kind of senior colleagues to kind of point out where they think the improvements are being made. And then it's tough for head teachers, who is it that's kind of doing that for them? And I think that's part of the wonders of my role, that what I should be doing is kind of saying to my head teachers, oh, I came 2 weeks ago and I'm really impressed by what you've done here. So if I walk down this corridor outside where we are this afternoon, I can see what the head teacher's done. I can see, if I look into those classrooms, how the learning environment's improved. If I open the books up, I can see. If I look at the curriculum planning, I can see all the work that the teachers have done in this school to keep making it a little bit better each day.
You know what's more beautiful about this is when you talk, teaching this to head teachers and teachers, that they need to celebrate small successes. Eventually this trickles down in students as well, because somehow, the reason why a lot of STEM issues are increasing, a lot of mental well-being issues are increasing even in the kids, is also because we just do not encourage them in, making those small successes. So if they, let's say, get an A, we're like, okay, you can get an A+. That's how the old school thinking was always. I think this, by doing this, you're actually creating an amazing environment and even upbreaking the kids at school. This will change the whole culture in the developing.
Everybody needs encouragement, don't they?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you guys need that encouragement of you're doing a good job and things are working out. That's what we all need, isn't it? We need that voice of positivity, that voice of hopefulness.
So we were at a conference 2 days ago where a lot of the operations side of trust were there, right? One of the things that they were talking about was culture, right? That it's we keep telling that in this country the pay is low, and that's why there's a teacher crisis, and the pay needs to go up, and that's why people are moving outside the country for teaching positions. I think there was also talk about this is not just a pay issue; it's also a culture issue. And they were talking about things on how we can improve cultures and the well-being of teachers, etc. And that's going to have a huge role to play. So, from your book and from your experiences, what would you say two key aspects or two key sort of variables that immediately or most commonly people miss in having because the pay is largely associated with the national numbers. It's not just in the trust's hands or school's hands. It's just driven by what the government. But in terms of the culture, which is in school's hand, which is in the trust's hand, what sort of two things that you'd say one can do that from your learnings and have an immediate sort of impact that people might miss?
Okay. If we look at the history of multi-academy trusts that kind of started, I don't know, maybe 2008, 2009, they've not always had the most positive reputation.
Yeah.
Multi-academy trusts have not always been like that. And one of the ideas behind Infinity Academies Trust was we wanted to try and create a really positive culture, that celebrated staff success and celebrated children's success. And it was about everybody learning, not just the children, but the adults as well. And everybody working together for kind of one end. If I was advising colleagues around developing culture, I tend to come back to almost 3 standards. Okay. The first thing is we should always do things that are legally right. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, but to me that's the lowest bar of a culture. So that's doing things that are legally right. Because you can do things that are legally right that don't feel like the right thing. Mm. So on top of doing things that's legally right, you need to do the right thing. Okay. But there's more than doing the right thing, because there's doing the right thing in the right way. Okay. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get where you want to get to, because you take time having the conversations with the different colleagues around, this is the direction we're going, this is where we want to get to, I'm thinking about doing this, what do you think? Have you seen it? And take that time in kind of unpacking those ideas with leaders so that they unpack it with staff. We've all worked in environments where we wake up, go into work one morning, and suddenly there's something we suddenly have to do it. Yeah. And that doesn't create that culture. We need to kind of have that shared understanding of why we're doing it, why it's a benefit for the children, why it's a benefit for organisation. Mm-hmm. So developing culture, I always talk about doing the right thing in the right way and spending time in doing that.
Perfect. And I think the other thing that you did mention also was celebrating and appreciation, right? That has a huge role to play, which sometimes doesn't happen enough in a school environment. I think moving on from that, I think if we come back to the wider industry on how school management, school leadership is changing in this country, right? So there's a talk that there will definitely be a government change next year. There's a strong consensus that there's going to be a change in policy to what it is from what it is right now. In the autumn statement that came out 3 days ago, there wasn't much talk of education. It's a bit disappointing. But in terms of whatever we know is going to happen, and academization is something which we know is going to stop. It's going to keep on happening. More and more schools get acquired, they join trust. But as to what is there for the industry overall, what are kind of your views would be in terms of, let's say, key challenges that are going to come up and key opportunities in terms of school management, whether it's the this academization process, or in general for school leaders, what's sort of those challenges and opportunities that you'd say are coming up ahead?
I would imagine that academies are here to stay. I think to kind of take away academies would just require a huge piece of work. And I think one thing that we've really learned over recent years, certainly in the kind of primary sector, is that head teachers don't want to be on their own. Actually, you're running your standalone school on your own without having quality assurance, without having people to help, is a massive task. And as the school gets smaller, maybe the task gets even bigger because you don't have that range of experts and those kind of things. So I foresee that the kind of academy movement will continue, and because schools will want to be part of a bigger organisation. And I think all the time, in the different worlds that I work in, people ask about joining academies and joining trusts and kind of what are the benefits of that, and they want that being part of something bigger, having people there who can help them and support them. Now, I'm not saying that's for all people, because some people want to become head teachers because they wanted to run their own school, they wanted that independence, and those head teachers will kind of be wary of joining the multi-academy trust, and that's not going to change. But what we do see is that it's becoming ever harder for those standalone schools, to kind of deal with the whole range of challenges that we've got without having that extra help and that extra support.
And the networks and CPD and
So I can see kind of more of that movement. I can certainly see the many standalone trusts, single schools on their own will probably start to coagulate together, whether that's with other standalone trusts or whether we'll join multi-academy trusts that are there already. Those very small schools, small trusts that consist of maybe 2 or 3 schools, I think they will either stick together with similar size organisations or join bigger ones. But I do wonder if there's a scale and a size that maybe the kind of, will reach a point where, maps are kind of a maximum 50 or 60 or 70 schools, because otherwise it becomes an organisation that it can be too big.
Correct.
So that would be kind of what I would imagine, kind of happening over the next years. Hopefully we'll kind of have a change to Ofsted, in terms of how that's managed, because there is so much in the news and on social media about the pressures on kind of head teachers and school staff, and that needs to be addressed in some way. Now, I don't have the magic answers for that, so don't ask me that this afternoon. But I just kind of feel as though we've reached a tipping point where we need to have something different, and I think a one size fits all model, where a 50 pupil primary school with 3 classes is inspected in the same way as a 2,000 pupil secondary school with a whole range of experts, it kind of doesn't make sense. So that's what I can imagine. More trusts, schools joining together, and kind of changes in the Ofsted framework.
Understood. I think two things that potentially people might say it's elephants in the room, but one is funding, right? So we'll have to wait and see on what happens on that front, because that's probably the biggest challenge that that's out there. And the other is, I think linked to it is the teacher retention issue that people talk about. So the number of teacher vacancies, the latest report out by TEDx, has never been as high, unprecedented. We were speaking with schools where they're hiring teachers from outside the country, where places like Ghana, where the standards are very different to what is in England. So those are the 2 major further issues that are that we keep hearing about. But on the flip side, in terms of positives, what would you sort of say that as a school leader that makes you excited about this industry, that whether it's 1 or 2 things, that's really nice happening.
And I think going back to how I began the conversation, I think it is. It's still a really exciting job, and I know kind of all the pressures on head teachers, but I still think being a head teacher is an amazing responsibility and kind of really exciting. And the job is different, it's always changing, and will forever be changing, and there probably are things that we could do with government doing to support the needs of our school leaders, and that will occur. But the same thing, there are kind of things that have changed for the good over time. If I kind of think of if you think of things like phonics, teaching in kind of early years, the way that's organised in far more detail. If I go back to early on in my career, national numeracy strategy and national literacy strategy were amazing at developing the quality of teaching and learning in our schools. Yeah. So there's always new things going on. And if I look at the moment, the work that people are doing around retrieval, there's some fantastic books and kind of conversations people are having about how do you help children remember more, how do you help them apply those things. So there's always new things, always exciting things going on in the classroom and outside of the classroom.
No, I absolutely agree, and I think the more conversations that we have, the more we learn that in the education industry, the why is probably the most important question. It's obviously not the financial rewards, it's not the other side, it's always the fulfillment side that leaders like yourself also talk about. It's the fulfillment of making a difference in the community, there's an impact in children's and education, and that's kind of the biggest thing in anybody's upbringing, education, right? So I think you're absolutely right. I think fulfillment is always the key why anybody should consider a career in school leadership. I think moving on from there, if you can talk about the forum side.
So besides this idea of what Harris was saying about fulfillment is the reason behind you being so active with the forum. Also that, and if you can talk more about what the forum is and what is your role about it, and what we're seeing these days with the progress of academization and it being famous a lot of trusts are coming together to collaborative approaches and exchanging ideas.
And data as well.
And data as well. So it's what forum is about, and if you want to talk more about it.
Forum Strategy Group is an amazing organisation founded by Michael Payne and now run by Alice Gregson, and it's a great organisation. It's there to kind of support CEOs and other MAT leaders, so Chief Operating Officers, Chief Finance Officers and Directors of Education, and it kind of brings people together from different trusts and kind of provides some fantastic stimulus to support them. A couple of years ago, I was really privileged to be asked to help support their education executives membership. So the idea, and when I first became a system leader, there wasn't really training, there wasn't really support for people doing that role of working over more than one school. And there is the MPQEL now, but there is still, there was a lack of a really high quality CPD programme for people who wanted to be education directors or regional directors or run CPD across multi-academy trusts. And I was really privileged that Forum asked me to help them provide that offer. So we have an annual membership for a range of directors of education and people that are responsible for improvement across a multi-academy trust. So I'm really lucky to kind of work on the Education Executives membership, and I work with Debbie Clinton, who's a really experienced CEO and kind of did an amazing job with the ATT organisation. So the two of us have this great opportunity to work with directors of education of tomorrow and provide conversation and provide support, and then Forum provides coaching, it provides study visits for those people as well as national conferences. So it's a real privilege to be involved, to be kind of supporting that organisation, and I didn't have anything like that when I became a regional director or an education director. Very much learn from reading, learn from talking to other people. So hopefully, if people like myself and Debbie can kind of share some of the things that we've learned along the way, so that those directors of education or improvement leads or those kind of things can transform their trusts faster and the schools they work in. I think that's fantastic.
You know what's so wonderful about all your talks since we started is I did not have that when I started. I did not go through this when I started, and hence I wanted to bring that change. That's probably the why that we've been talking about. and we were trying to and I was actually trying to dig it, where is that vibe, what is the passion behind it. But every time you spoke about something that you did, and you started with, when I was that, I didn't, have that. So probably this, that, when you did not have a certain privilege or a benefit, and when you want to bring that for other people, I think this is something that's rewarding, and that's the reason probably why I'm sitting here. So.
And that's what we all do in education, isn't it? And I think that's one of the bits that I enjoy. That it's, yes, we're creating a great environment for our children, but the best way of doing that in my role is to help the adults become better and more effective, and give them the opportunity to reflect. And you talked about the kind of recruitment and retention crisis. There's a multi-academy trust leader that I listen to quite regularly. He says, we don't have a recruitment crisis, we have a retention crisis, and we have to address that at all levels. So anything that we can do to support school leaders to stay in the job, to help refill their reservoirs of hope, I think is so important, because that's what will retain colleagues. So I love that phrase, refill the reservoirs of hope. Everybody in our schools has a reservoir of hope, and we need leaders and head teachers to kind of help refill those of classroom teachers and teaching assistants and all the wonderful people that run our schools. And then people who are lucky enough to have my position, we need to do that for our head teachers and our leaders. We're refilling their reservoirs of hope and saying, yeah, we're making a difference.
Yeah.
So Paul, what's next in life? Where are you heading?
So just into that also, but what I also wanted to ask is, having a career, so coming back to the next also, if I can add a little bit of context why we're so interested in that, is somebody like yourself who's come from a relatively junior level compared to where you are now, from a teacher to an assistant, all the way up, and so you've seen from the viewpoints of all these other, there's this argument where teachers and head teachers sort of are sometimes dissatisfied with the staff at the trust level, when they say they're not helping our school, where perhaps there's a gap cleaning or need based or whatever. So they have this sort of sometimes resentment as well. But you've been through all those viewpoints as well. So in your journey, in terms of asking you what's next, what's also important is how can the wider school leaders, aspiring leaders, trust people, how can they benefit more from your learning, from your experiences? So I know you've written one book, but you need to. Do you have like speaking events, or are you writing another one? Do you write a blog? Because this phenomenon is fairly new, and this academization, as you said, is not here to stop. It's going to continue. So what's your way for others to benefit from what you've learned and experienced?
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because does it help others benefit, or does it benefit me? So I do a lot of writing, and kind of I've got a blog, I've got a website, and I kind of do write for publications. But a lot of that is my journaling. That's my reflection. That's how I learn from what I'm doing. So actually, if other people read that, that's fantastic. But I start off by doing it to help myself. It's my own model of reflection. I'm really lucky that I do get asked to speak at conferences. And again, every time I lead a conference and share my ideas, I'm analysing what did I do and trying to learn again back to the 1% better. So if I'm asked to kind of deliver a conference session on supporting pupil premium children, or attendance at a school level, or if it's around how you develop school improvement systems at multi-academy trusts, all the time I'm reflecting on what I've done, and by doing those kind of presentations, that hopefully enables me to get a little bit better at what I do. In terms of the book, yes, I kind of would like to write another book. So kind of No Silver Bullets Day in Day Out School Improvement is kind of lots of little tasks and lots of little things that you can do to improve your school. I would like to kind of take that stage further and almost write more about the philosophy and the kind of how do you really implement that change, what are the leadership techniques that you need to kind of quality assure, to then plan, to then implement your plans, to then review what you're going to do. So I'd really like to do that, but we're all busy people. And finding time to kind of sit down and put that 50, 60,000 words in the page isn't easy. But yeah, hopefully one day it'll be kind of a no silver bullets 2.0 maybe.
We look forward
to coming to the question in terms of what's next, are we going to expect another publication, or whether, so I know you're saying you're already capturing your thoughts and reflection in your blog. So what's the blog's name? What's your website? Where can people read more about it?
So the blog is just Paul K. Ainsworth. Paul K. Ainsworth. If you just put in Paul Ainsworth, you'll get celebrity chef in Cornwall. And while you might get some great recipes, there might not be recipes. So that's kind of the blog, Paul K. Ainsworth Routes to Improvement, and kind of quite easy to find.
Okay. So guys, we'll put more information about Paul's writings, his profile, website, where people want to read more and take learnings from Paul's experiences. And can sort of find. So we'll put all those in the EdCast link. So that's it, guys. That was another episode of EdCast with Paul Ainsworth. This was slightly different because we captured it from a multi-academy trust level rather than from a head teacher point of view. I hope you like this. As I said, we will have all the details in the EdCast link. And see you in the next one. See ya. Bye.